In this video, we're gonna go through some of the camera settings in the menu. I'm using a Canon 5D Mark IV. Most of the settings will be the same no matter what camera you're using, but they may just be found in different places in your camera's menu system. So I will walk you through some of the things that I look for. First thing is image quality. I wanna make sure that this is set to RAW. I don't wanna do JPEG. Sometimes it allows you to take both. I just leave that off because I don't need the JPEG file. I just wanna make sure that I have that RAW file in order to capture as much detail in the picture as possible. The next thing you can look at is aspect ratio. I leave it at 3:2. Aspect ratio is basically the shape of the picture. So 3:2 is almost more of a square type of picture, and I think that's pretty standard in real estate photography. 16:9 is more of a video type of shape, like more of a rectangle that you'll see on standard videos. Like full HD videos are typically in a 16:9 ratio, but 3:2 is gonna be perfect for what you need for real estate photography. The next setting you wanna take a look at is your white balance setting. There's a button on top of my camera, that's your white balance setting button. If I click on that, it brings me these options for white balance. So I can have auto white balance, which if you don't want to worry about white balance, auto is going to be fine for what you need. You also have daylight, shade, cloudy, tungsten, fluorescent, flash, or custom. And you can customize your white balance. That's a little bit more of a process, or you can adjust the color temperature yourself. And to do that, you can come here to your menu, go to white balance, and you can adjust. See how the number is changing. That's the degrees Kelvin that you're changing there. So if I boost it way up to say 6200, select that, you can see that the image becomes a lot more orange. Now if I go back and change that to say 3200, it's a lot more blue. So you want to make sure that you're adjusting to the color temperature of the room. And an easy way to do that is just to use the auto white balance setting. If you don't want to bother going back and forth and figuring out what your color temperature is supposed to be, probably somewhere in the middle around 4300 or something. That looks pretty good. The next setting to think about is your aperture. On my camera, you have a touch screen, so I can actually click on this aperture setting here and scroll and move this. We've talked about the different apertures that a lens will have. Mine goes to f4 and it goes all the way up to 22. In real estate photography, again, if you're doing this manually, a good rule of thumb is to be at 7.1 to around 8. And the reason for that is so that everything in the room is pretty much in focus. If you have your aperture down to say f4, if your focus point is something towards the camera, you might get that bokeh effect where some of the background of the image will become more blurry, and you want to avoid that as best you can. So having a higher aperture like 7.1 to 8 will make it so that mostly everything is always going to be in focus. You can also adjust your shutter speed. My shutter speed is adjusted by the wheel on top, or again, I can come here and use my touch screen and move this up and down. Shutter speed isn't as important in real estate photography because everything is static. Nothing is moving in the shot. So this basically just adjusts the brightness of the photo. The last thing is your ISO, and this brightens or lowers the brightness of your image. One last thing in manual mode is this bracketed feature. So this makes it a little bit faster in manual mode. I can take 3 different shots, one very dark, one normal, and one really bright. And the reason you do that is for the editing purposes of combining those photos together into an HDR file. And we'll go over that in the next video when we edit these photos. So I will take this picture, and then the next picture, you'll see it gets darker, and then the next picture gets very bright. If you don't want to deal with all of these settings, you can change your settings all the way to auto mode. And this will adjust based on where your focus point is. So if I focus on the windows, the interior is going to get really dark, but it's exposing for those windows. And if I have a focus point in a darker area it's going to expose for the interior of the room. The reason I shoot in auto mode is purely because it's faster. And because I'm shooting with raw files, the editing process gives me a lot of flexibility. The file sizes are huge, which means it has a lot of detail hidden inside of those pixels. So I can tweak the white balance, the exposure, the shadows, the highlights, and adjust the color temperature if something isn't perfect within the shot. I have the flexibility to change that because those files contain so much information. But definitely try out both. Use manual mode, use auto mode, figure out what works best for you.